Hey, what's up, YouTube? We're back. Me and Luna today are going to be discussing primary weapons versus the new Illuminate enemies. We have the Crusher and we have the Wretch. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons of every primary weapon, mostly discussing it towards the higher end scale of difficulty, but talking about weapons that can kind of do both roles are definitely going to be ranked higher. Ones that maybe focus on one or the other, maybe a little bit lower, and weapons that maybe struggle against both are going to be on the tail end of the tier list. If you like the video today, consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing. Me and Luna would really appreciate it. Luna right now is on the side of my desk, being an absolute cutie pie, but let's get into it. So starting with the normal Liberator, very basic assault rifle. It feels okay, to say the best. I like it against the Wretches at times, but the other assault rifles that can light the enemies on fire or knock them back tend to be something that maybe I would prefer a little bit more of. I don't think it's a bad weapon, this faction, but I also don't think it's a great weapon at all. It tends to, for at least me, feel like it hovers around like B-, C+ area. I think I'm going to keep it in B for now, just because it tends to be our mid zone of weapons. It tends to be the balancing point, but it may drop to C+ depending on how we go. It just takes a few too many rounds to drop a Wretch unless you're being incredibly accurate, only hitting headshots. And versus a Crusher, I almost just wouldn't even take the time to shoot at a Crusher unless his head is already exposed due to heavy pen of some kind. So not particularly my favorite. Next, we have the Liberator Penetrator, another weapon that just doesn't feel great against Wretches and not exactly something that I would use against the Crushers. It doesn't have the pen requirement in order to take on the Crusher. It is a little bit easier to be more precise because of a slightly slower fire rate, but if you include some more Illuminate into the faction, the medium pen does tend to, shine pretty bright on normal Illuminate. So assuming you're playing against the new enemies on the new, I think it's like the attack fleet. They just showed up on the plants today as I'm recording this, where basically you'll have the Overseers, you'll have, the Stingrays in the sky, you're gonna have Watchers, you're gonna have the Harvesters as well. Medium pen plays a pretty big role against all those, and it does perform better. But just looking towards the Wretches and Crushers, I can't say I recommend the Liberator Penetrator that much. Next, we have the Concussive, Liberator Concussive. Another one of those ones that I just feel like is not a particularly well sought after assault rifle. I will throw it up there just because it is nice to have the concussive effects against the Crusher and against the Wretch, but it's a hard sell for me. Now, all these weapons do have the short mags, and if you haven't tried those out, they are fantastic for all these weapons, but this is definitely not the faction of Liberators to shine on. Next, we have the Liberator Carbine. If you are going to pick a Liberator, I would probably pick the Liberator Carbine. With short mags, it can be a bit hard to use because you're going to go through the magazine so fast, but you have more total ammo, so you do have more total damage in reserve, which is nice. But yeah, once again, it's going to be a bit of a struggle versus Wretches unless you're very accurate, and versus Crushers, it's not doing much. You can like full auto a leg to death, but it's going to take a lot of rounds. Too many to count, to be fair. Next, we have our Adjudicator, somewhere placed similar to the Liberator Penetrator. Like I said, these medium pen weapons would shine a lot brighter if we were looking at like more of a complete picture of all the Illuminate units, but just against the new units, not a particularly well sought after weapon. Next, we have the Tenderizer. I do like this weapon as a whole. I will probably put it like B-. Very controllable, easy to use, good damage per bullet, especially when you put it in burst fire, but it's going to be like the rest of the assault rifles, especially the light pen ones. They're not going to shine too bright on the rest of the Illuminate as bright as medium pen weapons, but particularly against the Wretches and Crushers, not particularly right. Next, we have the Pacifier. You might be surprised to see it higher than the rest. It is medium pen, which is pretty nice to have, but it doesn't really play into the real reason why I put it here. It is the stun power. The stun power is really nice against the Wretches. It's only a couple rounds, like 1 to 2 rounds, in fact, to stun them on average. And then you can also stun Crushers as well to make them easy targets for other weapons or your teammates. The CC power of it is quite nice, while also doing a decent amount of damage. It can be pretty easy to then like stun a Wretch, shoot them in the face, and because they're stunned, they won't do their like crazy claw attacks. So I do appreciate the Pacifier for that. A lot of people like to dog on the Pacifier quite often, but I think it actually does perform pretty well here. Next, we have the Halo Assault Rifle, another one of those medium pen assault rifles that would shine brighter, once again, if we had overseers and stuff like that, because you can at least headshot them and such, but it, once again, does not perform particularly well against these. I would almost dare put it in D tier just because it feels like it needs some more love, but I think it's C-. It's not quite D. Next, we have the Coyote. Coyote feels really good. It is teetering between S and A tier. You might be like, why isn't it just S tier immediately? Because it doesn't really do that much against the Crusher. Yes, it does apply fire to them, and yes, you can kill a Crusher eventually with enough applications of fire, but it's not a very efficient way to take care of a Crusher. But it is so good against Wretches that it teeters between the two regardless. This one might end up being S tier, but I'm going to keep it A+ tier for now. It's 2 bullets per wretch on average to kill. You might get the instant ignite on the first bullet, but on average it might not ignite on the first. There's a little bit of a % chance on that one, but you have a 45 round magazine, 2 bullets per. You can kill a lot of wretches per individual magazine, especially if you're being pretty like trigger discipline wise. You don't have to hit them in the face. You don't have to hit them any particular. Just hit them once, twice, and they will burn to death. It is amazing how efficient this weapon is. It continues to be the shining pinnacle of assault rifles. It's so good. Now we go into our kill zone weapon, our first D tier. It's like a former Liberator, as you will, but with less attachments and less user-friendly experience, especially when you try to aim down sights with it. I'm still hoping it kind of gets the Warhammer treatment where it gets a bump up, because it does deserve it. But yeah, first D tier. Next, we have the 1-2. This is going to be like B+ A-. The reason why this is higher is at least you get the grenade utility, and if you wanted to, you could potentially kill a Crusher, or at least injure one significantly if you aim well enough with your grenades. So I'm at least going to value that. It is a base Liberator at the end of the day, but the utility of the grenades is fairly decent, but I can't put it much higher than like a B+ A- tier. It's going to tier between 2. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put it, but I'm going to wait till later in the tier list to put my final placement. Next, we have the suppressed AR. This one came from the Redacted War Bond. If you want to try stealth, you know, it is one of the better stealth weapons. I'm going to put it up in B- just because it does give you that option, and stealth can be pretty good because if you are playing against the Vote Snatchers, the enemies are almost always going to be coming at you in a patrol manner, so you could potentially avoid aggroing more than one patrol because of that. You know, you're not trying to dodge watchers when you're dealing with Vote Snatchers necessarily, but it could be pretty good for avoiding more contact than you wish, because it can be very crazy when you aggro too many patrols, because the patrols just keep coming. It can be relentless. So I do appreciate the suppressor here, and it does deserve to be somewhere in B tier, probably like middle B. Next, we have the Constitution. It recently just got a buff. It has Ripper clips now, which is fantastic. Nice to see. I always thought this was supposed to be more of a challenge weapon. I guess they wanted to buff the challenge weapon a little bit, give it stripper clips. Cool. It does reload faster when you fully unload the magazine. I mean, D tier. I feel bad putting it like above the kill zone. It's probably worse at the kill zone, but I mean, I guess technically if you had aimbot, you could just like headshot every single wretch and then like it would do pretty good, but it's a pretty hard weapon to use because if you miss a round, it is extremely punishing. You do have the bayonet, which is okay, but I don't recommend really meleeing wretches all that much. Your stim tax will be quite plentiful. Next, we go into the regular Diligence. I do like them. I like the DMR class and as a whole as like a secondary weapon to whatever weapon you decide to take on Crushers with. Like, let's say you bring like the HMG and you're removing their helmets in 5 rounds or 4 or 5 rounds, swapping to your primary weapon that maybe is more precision based to then snipe the face of the Crusher's head. DMRs feel really good for that. ARs feel a little bit harder to use just because of the movement, taking an extra shot or two, just not as easy as that precision shot that DMR tends to have. Although, that being said, you are using a DMR, so against the wretches, it will be more punishing if you are missing shots. 20 round magazine and so is nice though, and the damage is quite plentiful, but you're not getting any like CC or any knockback out of this particular tier of weapon, so it's gonna be like a B-. I'm going to give it some of that like precision shooting for the crushers, but it's not particularly great against the wretches itself. Next, we have the Diligence Counter Sniper. If this was more the normal Illuminate, I absolutely love the Diligence Counter Sniper, and it would be a lot higher because it's great for sniping Overseers and sniping the Harvester legs and stuff like that. But it's just a harder to use normal Diligence. And when we're talking about this class of like Crusher, you're not doing anything with the medium pen, and the medium pen doesn't do anything special against the wretches, so it's hard for me to justify it. So I'm going to keep it down, probably C+. I would probably prefer to use the Diligence if it's just normal Vote Snatchers, right? If you have the other Illuminates available to you, I would put it higher. Next, we have the Deadeye. I can appreciate the fact that it has the medium pen and the high alpha damage and the fact that it has knockback, but it's pretty rough if you start missing shots. Very small magazine, very slow reload, especially if you fully empty the magazine. I can't necessarily recommend this weapon. It's just too punishing if you miss. Like I said, if it has the other Illuminate forces, it becomes a lot better. You know, it starts staggering, great against Overseers, great against the Harvester and stuff like that. Medium pen, especially high damage medium pen, fantastic, but can't recommend it that much against this particular strain. Next, we have the Amendment, very similar to the regular Diligence. I prefer this one over the regular Diligence. It's a little bit more damage per round. You get the bayonet. If something gets too close, you can in fact melee it. And the wretches, they do take a melee pretty well to the face, so it's not that bad. Just be careful. Hit trading with a wretch does not go well typically, so it's a last resort. But it was nice to use as a swap to me weapon when I've removed the helmet of a Crusher, and it was decent to use against the wretches, especially with some decent good shooting. Next, you have the Censor, a fan favorite of many, silenced version essentially of the regular Diligence and the Amendment. It's kind of the same thing, slightly slower bullet velocity, but it really good with the extended mag. Feels awesome. It is suppressed, so similar reasoning for why it's in B tier to the suppressed AR, but not a particularly great weapon for anything other than the Crusher. You'll have to hit those shots versus wretches. If you start missing, you will probably be in full panic mode because they will be closing the distance, and this gun does not have much CC, and it doesn't have the best killing potential unless you're hitting all your shots. Next, we have the Hyena. It might be a bit of surprise for some people that I know absolutely hate this weapon, but it's actually really good. It one-taps wretches no matter where you hit them. Similar to the Coyote, not as easy to use as the Coyote. The Coyote is definitely the easier of the two weapons to use, which is why it's been teetering between S and A tier. Hyena is more between like A and A-, but it feels good. Remember, remove your barrel, lower the magnification on the scope, put short mag on, and you're going to be sitting around, I think it's like 37 ergo, which is very usable, even before putting on an armor to give you more ergonomics. And just one tapping wretches is extremely satisfying. You don't have to worry about 50-50 chance like the Coyote not always lighting an enemy on fire on the first shot. The Hyena, I never managed to not light a wretch on fire. You wait a couple seconds, they burn out. It's really satisfying to use, and it's a good weapon for it. Also, it's a DMR, so it's pretty easy to then aim down sights and grab the head of a Crusher. It's not one tapping a Crusher's head. It typically took two. But yeah, fire damage, good. Next, we have the Knight. I think the Knight is a fun weapon to use, but hard to justify in the grand scheme of things, just mostly down to ammo supply. You will go through that, you know, ammo that you have for the weapon extremely fast because it's 1,300 rounds per minute. I highly recommend putting it in burst fire, but even then you're going to go through it super fast. I'm still hoping that this weapon gets either a short mag version. I know it's kind of a weird gun to get a short mag, but would be nice to get it even in that P90 format, or just another magazine or two in backup. It just, that 1,300 rounds per minute, you go through it so fast that it's hard to justify. You will overkill enemies all the time with it, meaning you're going to waste a lot of ammunition. So it's not exactly easy for me to justify putting it higher. I don't think it's a bad weapon, but in the context of these enemies, not particularly great. Next, we have the Defender. Honestly, kind of like the Liberator of SMGs, I should say. Good, reliable, but not particularly amazing at anything in this particular faction. It's nice to have the one-handed so you can walk backwards and shoot behind you. You can bring it with the shield if you want to, or have an objective in your hand. I see the potential of that. Wretches will be be close range with you, and the upfront damage of the SMG does feel nice, but I don't think it's like much nicer than just the standard AR. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it that much. Next, we have the Pummeler. Not as good as the Liberator Concussive in my opinion. I do prefer the Liberator Concussive overall, but the Pummeler does have the CC effect, so in those panicked moments against many wretches, decent, especially if you have like a supply back or a guard dog backpack or something like that to help you out in those moments. Not bad. The Reprimand can't really recommend. Unfortunately, you know, if you have the other Illuminate, once again, it's a medium pen weapon. It's a good medium pen weapon at that, but all by itself versus wretches, the magazine just does not feel big enough, and the power creep is starting to feel it. It's one of those weapons that didn't receive as much of a buff as the others, and versus wretches, versus crushers, you're not really doing much as long as the helmet is still on, right? Next, we have the Silent SMG from the Halo Warbond. It has received some tuning over time and some better stats, but not much has changed. I will value the Suppressor, but it is a classification of weapon similar to the Knight. It's an absolute bullet hose. You're gonna go through that ammo super fast, and it's hard to conserve ammo. I would probably prefer to have the suppressed AR, especially since you can put all those attachments on it to make it easier to use. So if I'm gonna use a suppressed automatic weapon, I'm gonna use the suppressed AR rather than the Halo SMG. Next, we have the StA-11. It's still really bad. I don't recommend it. I don't think I really have to say more. It's very similar to its sister weapon, the StA-52. Don't recommend. Next, we have the Stoker. I like this weapon a lot. It's a very solid SMG, very easy to use, next to no recoil. It just got short mag, so it has tons of ammo. Highly recommend just using it and trying it out for that. And then it's got the flamethrower down below. The flamethrower is very good against the wretches, very good against the crushers as well. It's a tough sell because I almost want to put it in A-, and I will. I think if you value and you remember to use the flamethrower, it easily deserves to be an A tier. If you don't use the flamethrower very often, it will probably feel like a B to C tier. Use the flamethrower. At least light the ground on fire and let the wretches walk into it. One application of fire, like we've been talking about previously, is enough to kill them. It feels very good with the flamethrower usage. So use it. It's great. It's probably a little bit easier to use than the Hyena, but they're kind of interchangeable. They're both very good. Next, we have the Gallant, which is basically just the medium pen version of the Knight. Once again, medium pen doesn't really matter here unless you include the other Illuminate forces, so it's going to be pretty low on the tier list, but same kind of inconsistencies and problems as the Knight. You go through the ammo so fast, you have to use it in a burst fire almost to not overshoot the entire magazine. It's hard for me to justify it, so I don't necessarily recommend. Next, we have the Punisher Shotgun. Not great against the crushers itself, but just a solid choice. Shotguns like this are great against those leaping enemies because you can actually shotgun them as they're leaping towards you and push them back. And because it's a shotgun, pretty easy to do reliably. Good ammo economy, good stats. You'll probably need to double pump a lot of the wretches. Sometimes you'll get the one pump, but most of the time a two pump, but it feels good. You know, just having that CC potential gives it like a B+ rating in my book. Next, we have the Slugger. Hard to justify, hard to use. It's going to be like using like a lot of the other weapons around. At least it has that stagger force, so I'm probably going to put it like C+, but it's just not going to be as useful or as needed as the Punisher. The Punisher is just so much more forgiving because it's not a slug, and you're just not going to be able to utilize that medium pen that it offers on this particular Vote Snatchers strain. If they add in all the time other medium pen vulnerable enemies, it would be higher. All right, next we go to, let me just resize it because we're starting to get a lot on the board, the regular breaker. This recently got short mags and it feels a lot better, lots more ammo. I'm gonna say this is like a solid B, you know, somewhere middle of the pack. It feels good, not as good as the Punisher because of the knockback, but as far as like raw DPS, this is a weapon that you're starting to look at. Like if you wanted to like DPS down a crusher, I'm starting to favor it more, but I wouldn't really recommend it still. Put the choke on this, put short mags on it, and have fun. You will go through ammo a little pretty fast if you just full auto everything. So I recommend, you know, a little bit of trigger discipline, but fun to use. Another weapon that also got short mags, but doesn't need trigger discipline because it essentially has double the ammo, is a Spray&Pray. You might be like, why aren't you favoring it more than the breaker? I find the breaker to be easier to use and not hit trade with as much because it has more raw damage. You give up some potential like max ammo for raw damage, which means that you have more stopping power. There's almost like this weird thing that happens with the spray and pray that you almost feel like you have too much ammo. I noticed that when I was first trying out the short mags, that you actually have so much ammo that like I always felt like I had it, which is really good, but I always felt like, man, I wish this had more damage. A lot of the wretches were getting fairly close while I was using it, and sometimes I was hit trading with them because I couldn't stop them fast enough. But when I had the breaker, I didn't have that issue nearly as much. I would run out of ammo occasionally, but I could keep them at distance because I just had more DPS. So it's definitely a trade-off. I'm putting them somewhat close together so you guys can figure out if you prefer one or the other. There's going to be those spray and pray enjoyers that like are mad at that I'm not even putting it in A tier, and then there's going to be those people that prefer the breaker because they want the higher DPS of the breaker. So I don't think either of them deserve to be an A tier before someone gets mad at me. They are usable and they are good versus the wretches, but they don't really do that much against the crusher. So I'm going to put them like somewhere like B+ tier because I don't think they're like bad weapons to use, but honestly, in a lot of situations, I would probably just prefer to use the Punisher just because it's easier to use in a lot of situations. Next, we have the Incendiary breaker. I'm sure this isn't a surprise to many. Light them on fire. It's really good. Next, we have the Cookout. It's really good. Light them on fire, but easier to use because you knock them back. It's basically just the upgraded version of your Punisher. It just feels really easy to use because you can knock back those wretches that get too close, and if they get lit on fire, just ignore them. They'll burn out in just a second and fall over. So yeah, you're probably seeing a theme here. Fire is really good against wretches. It's really strong. And although it's not amazing versus crushers, just lighting them on fire continuously, at least it can do something more than these other weapons, the ballistic weapons that just struggle against doing enough damage. Crushers have a lot of HP and they regen it if you don't deal enough damage fast enough. All right, next we have the Halt shotgun. The EMS rounds, I'm going to give some credit to, but the actual shotgun component of it itself, too low of damage per shot. If you use the EMS rounds well, I think it's actually pretty good. You can stun crushers, you can stun wretches, it can keep you alive. It can even stun a flesh mob if he hasn't rampaged yet. It feels good, but it's hard to utilize it because the shotgun shells, the regular ones, the Vachette rounds, not particularly great against wretches. You will probably have to double pump very accurately even to drop one. You'll probably might even take 3 shots sometimes to take them out unless they're very close. So not a fan favorite for me. Next, we have the Halo shotgun. Hoping this gets medium pen, especially since a lot of its sister weapons, like the sweeper and such, are all medium pen. And after playing the Halo campaign recently again, it probably deserves to be medium pen. I think this weapon is somewhere like B-. It is a Punisher adjacent weapon, but it's kind of like the worst variety of Punisher. Yes, it does more damage per shot, but you don't get access to the chokes that make the Punisher easier to use. And then you have a slower reload, and then you don't have medium pen, which obviously wouldn't have played a big factor here, but I would just rather use the Punisher. Faster reload, better attachments. Yeah, it's just kind of like the better shotgun. But I do appreciate the fact that it's a shotgun that has knockback. It is not lost on me, and it is fairly good against the wretches in that regard. Next, we have the Double Freedom. I love this weapon, but it doesn't really do much on this like type of enemies, like the enemies that we run into. If we had some overseers to shoot at and stuff like that, I'd appreciate it a lot more. But versus like horde enemies, it's really tough to use because you're gonna be douche reload, reload, and you're just gonna be like struggling to kill enough enemies fast enough because you're just gonna be constantly reloading. Best case scenario, you have like siege ready on and you have like a faster reload, but it's tough to make work. I don't recommend it. You could try it, but I feel like a lot of those wretches are gonna bully you, so be really careful. But it is pretty satisfying to take on the crushers when they've lost their helmet. It is very satisfying to just like line up a headshot and take them out with that. So there is that at least. Next, we have the Sweeper shotgun. The Sweeper is like high B+, A-. It doesn't have any knockback on it, but I do prefer it over the Punisher. Although it has less CC, it has more damage per shot, which is really satisfying to use and good against the crushers. It has the choke, highly recommend the choke on it, and obviously it has the bayonet, which is fairly good for when those wretches get too close to you. For most players, I wouldn't say it's like worth buying in the superstore if you already have the Punisher available to you. If you want a shotgun, I think the Punisher is more or less better, especially if you don't have the 2 incendiary shotguns. weapons. But the sweeper is like an honorable mention, and it is fun to use. It's just, it can be pretty hard to use against the wretches. You're not always going to one-tap them reliably. It will often take 2 shots, which is not the biggest deal. Just remember to reload. Don't empty the magazine. If you empty the magazine, that first shell to load takes so long. So pretty much always try to make sure you always have 1 shell left before you start reloading. Next, we have the exploding crossbow. It can sometimes be hard to use, but if you are good with it, it is insanely good versus the crushers and insanely good against the packs of wretches. It's a little hard when the wretches get really close to you, but that's where like your positioning and dodging backwards will come in. I'm going to assume you're pretty good with the crossbow to value it this high. If you're newer to using the crossbow, it's probably going to be an A- just because it can sometimes be hard to use. But I'm going to assume you're pretty good with it and you know your visual spacing and stuff like that, and like how close you should be firing it and how when you should not be firing it in close range and be dodging backwards and running away and stuff like that. But if you have like a lot of enemies in front of you, it destroys wretches really good, and it is so good against crushers because they are very weak to explosive damage. All right, next we have the Eruptor. A little bit harder of a weapon to use in my opinion, but I do think it is still like an S to A+ tier weapon. It absolutely eviscerates crushers. It's technically even better than the crossbow in some regards because it has AP4 from the projectile itself, not the explosion, not the shrapnel, but the actual projectile. If you hit the helmet of the crusher, you can 2-shot it off, which is pretty cool. And this weapon alone can solo crushers pretty much just as well as the crossbow. It's a little harder because you need some more accuracy, but it is very good against the enemies. You will want to rely on your sidearm a bit more or your support weapon for wretches, but as long as you can deal with the wretches before they get to you, it's extremely good at doing that. Lots of damage, and the shrapnel is extremely good. I'm definitely valuing the fact that it can kill crushers really well, and I'm valuing the fact that at range, these 2 weapons in particular absolutely mog the wretches. But if the wretches get too close, it can be an awkward weapon to use. So you're going to want to bring a sidearm that you like, or a sport weapon, or a guard dog, or something like that for those oh shit moments. But if you manage to use these 2 weapons effectively, they are absolutely deserving of the S tier, and it's unsurprising they fail to leave the S tier, let's be honest. Next, we have the Scythe. The Scythe is very similar, but honestly, even a little bit easier to use than the Coyote. And the reason for that is because the Scythe, all you need to do is trace the laser over enemies to light them on fire. The Scythe has been this way for a little bit, and it's crazy. It doesn't do much upfront damage per second or anything like that, but the lighting of fire is really good. So for any enemies that are really weak against being lit on fire, the Scythe always tends to be really good at. And because it's so accurate, if you like aim down sights and you go for a crusher's head, it will take a second or two, but it's very accurate and good at taking out the head of crushers as well. It deserves that S tier. If you have not given this Scythe a try since like unlocking it in the first Warbond, you're sleeping on it. It's really good. It's very good at lighting things on fire at the moment. And honestly, even a little bit easier than the Coyote. And if you don't overheat it, it's got unlimited ammo. So there's a lot to love about it. It's another reason why the Coyote doesn't quite go into S tier all the time, but it probably will fit in there at some point in this tier list. Mark my words. Next, we have the Sickle. This one has been kind of sickly for a while. It's one of the few assault rifles that just hasn't received that bump up that it deserves. You know, it used to be the best AR in the game, but it has been having trouble over the last, like, oh my God, year plus. They have given it some damage, a little bit more durable and upfront damage, but it just needs more, especially like when your older brother, technically, the Scythe just feels so good with the fire damage and it doesn't have that. It's pretty rough to use. It's going to be somewhere in C tier. I will value the fact that it has potentially unlimited ammo, but it's not particularly great other than that. It's like, I don't even know. I honestly think it's more C-. It's usable, but not a great usable. Okay, next we have the Double-Edge Sickle. If you've ever watched my tier list when trying to place this weapon, it's always tough because if you build around it and you bring lots of stims and you bring fire resistant armor and you have vitality on, you don't light yourself on fire until you actually purely overheat the weapon. You take like no damage. That's amazing. That's really cool. But if you don't build into it at all, it feels really bad because you're going to start taking damage almost immediately after firing it, and it doesn't do all that well if you don't invest in it. if you invest in it, it's honestly like an A tier weapon somewhere probably. But if you don't invest in it, it's like C tier. It's a hard weapon to place, obviously. It could even honestly be even S tier if you invest a lot into the particular weapon. Like let's say you bring the supply backpack and you're always overheated, so you get the Pen 4, so you remove the helmet of the crushers. This thing could be an absolute demon. It could be a support weapon essentially, but you have to invest a lot into it. And you got to be okay with the constant screaming. That is also a downside. I'm going to put it middle B tier, but do be aware that I'm putting it there assuming that you understand that if you invest in it, it's higher, and if you don't invest in it, it's lower. Cool? Makes sense? Awesome. Next, we have the Trident. Trident still feels amazing. In this most recent patch, they gave it the recoil that apparently it always deserved. It always had a vertical recoil stat on it, but it didn't actually recoil. It literally zero recoil, but they actually gave it the recoil now. Some people discovered that even worse because they had the angled foregrip on it. Take it off. You don't need the extra ergonomics, don't worry. But apparently it's on Zendex, so they might revert it similar to the laser guard dog, which used to not overheat, and then they fixed it to make it overheat. People didn't like it. Then it went back to not overheating, and it's really good right now. So I can see this probably go back to having no recoil, but alas, it doesn't really matter. Tangent over. The Trident is still extremely freaking good. It's easy A tier, so it's one of the better shotguns in the game. It doesn't have the ability to light enemies on fire, but it doesn't really need to. Unlimited ammo, great damage, very accurate, which is kind of hard to say for all shotguns, but it does actually feel accurate. Yeah, really good shotgun you have. Just don't overheat it and you'll be fine. And if you find the recoil to be particularly annoying, just take off, like I said, take off the angled foregrip and just tap fire it. Don't full auto it all the time. It'll make it easier to not overheat it too. So highly recommend. Next, we have the Scorcher. Scorcher is going to be like all the way up in A+ tier. The reason why it is up here is because it's explosive damage. So you can one mag a crusher, which is insane, but it's not quite going into S tier just because one full magazine per crusher is not exactly the most efficient weapon. And in order to take out wretches, you're taking a couple shots per. You go through the ammo on this thing so fast. Like you will be out of ammo in next to no time because you're not just running into one crusher at a time. You're running into like 5 or so. So you can go out of ammo really quickly, but I'm going to assume that you're pretty good at ammo management and maybe even brought a supply backpack to make it A+ S tier, right? It is extremely good at what it does, but it's hard for me to justify putting it S tier because you will be running out of ammo so fast and it's just not as ammo efficient as the other explosive weapons that we already have on there, but it is really good. It is really good. Next we have the Purifier, right up there next to the Scorcher. I want to put it a little higher than the Scorcher just because it's more ammo efficient, because each individual shot, if you charge it, is very efficient. If you just tap fire it, it's less efficient than Scorcher. Do you always have enough time to charge a shot? Maybe not, but the AoE damage is very big. It's basically like the crossbow without having the extra utility of being able to blow up like bug holes and stuff like that, but which doesn't really matter that much versus Illuminates because there aren't nearly as many bug holes have to kill. Really good weapon, highly recommend. I'm gonna put the Coyote for now up to S+ tier, but like both of these weapons are teetering on S tier as well. They are extremely good explosive weapons for both the wretches and the crushers. They can do everything that you want them to do. Next, we have the Plasma Punisher, a fan favorite, another one that deserves to be all the way up in A+ tier, teetering on S tier. Isn't that crazy? All the plasma weapons, who would have guessed? Explosive weapons are good. Really good in the sense of it's easier to use, which is why I'm gonna put a little bit to the left. It's easier to use versus the wretches because it actually knocks them back. It does less damage per shot, so you'll have to double up on shots, but it does lots of damage. You can take out crushers with it. You know, usually looking at like, I think it's around 10 shots to kill a crusher, not quite one magazine, a little bit more, but it feels really nice. I really like the Punisher Plasma. It was a joy to use. Not as good as maybe versus the wretches as the Coyote, but at least you can kill crushers unlike the Coyote. It's really tough here, man. You see me like moving the Coyote back and forth. I'm struggling with it. Anyways, next going to the accelerator, Plasma Accelerator. You might be like, oh, it's A+ tier. It's plasma. No. It kind of sucks. It takes, I think, 5 bursts. I can't remember. It's like 4 or 5 bursts to take out a crusher. And that's a lot of your ammo and a lot of time because you have to constantly charge up the next round. And it doesn't feel good against the wretches. So if all you need is a weapon that's pretty good at killing crushers, and you don't have to worry about killing wretches, okay, I can see you. But I would rather have the other plasma weapons, I think, or like a crossbow or an eruptor than this. I am going to put it in B tier. I do think it's like serviceable, okay, but I think it is not that good. And I think it's still one of those situations where it's unfortunately because it kind of overkills wretches and you have to do a triple shot. It would be almost nice if you didn't have to do a triple shot, but also the ammo economy is not the best on it. It's a little bit of both, which is a bit unfortunate. Next, we have the Blitzer, a weapon that is good against the wretches, but I would not recommend trying to stun a crusher. Theoretically, you can do it, but you'll have to basically get into melee range with it in order to do it. It feels pretty awkward. It's an unlimited ammo weapon that can stun a lot of enemies, and it is very easy to use because it's essentially auto aim, but in order to really use it against the crushers, you got to get really close to them, and wretches die pretty slowly to this thing. So if you have a lot of wretches on you and you're not stunning all of them all at the same time, it'd be kind of awkward, but it's easy to use. So there's at least that. I'm going to put it somewhere middle B tier. Next, we have the Torcher, very solid weapon, A- tier. Good against the wretches, as you already understand. Fire is just really good against them, and it does do fairly good against crushers. Aim for the head with the beam of fire, you can remove the helmet, and if you don't feel like continuing to beam the head, because you can kill the head with the fire beam like that, just swap to another weapon and take out the head out after that. It feels really nice. It's just a solid weapon. It lacks range, but it's essentially like a support weapon in your primary slot. Feels really nice against this faction. Great against the flesh mobs, great against the voteless, great against the wretches, great against the crushers. Honestly, I don't know why I'm not putting it in S tier. It probably just deserves to be there. I didn't really think about it as an S tier weapon, but I kind of just convinced myself as I was saying all that stuff. It just does everything. It's really good against this faction. Yeah. And there's no ranged enemies against the vote snatchers as long as you're not playing against the invasion fleet at the same time. I understand that right now in game, if you're watching it right now, it might be like, but streamer, YouTuber, there's a bunch of ranged enemies. I don't believe that's supposed to always be there. That's just on those planets right now. Vote snatchers themselves have no ranged enemies. So the flamethrower actually does really freaking well. All right, next we have the Dominator. This one has been feeling kind of meh as of late. At least it has lots of knockback, but it can be very punishing if you miss some shots. It's kind of just like a better Deadeye. So it's going to be somewhere like C tier. I almost want to say it's a little bit better than the Diligence counter sniper, just because if you do hit a target and you don't kill them, at least they're knocked back. But it doesn't feel amazing against them. Yeah, pretty slow reload, not the best ammo economy. Damage is pretty good, but I would honestly rather use the Hotshot, which we're about to talk about, which is very similar weapon stats. But the Hotshot is kind of just a better Dominator, but without the knockback. But I would gladly give up the knockback, I think, for the better stats as far as ammo economy and so on and so forth. It just feels like it's just an easier weapon to use because it doesn't have the weird jet gyro weapon like muzzle velocity and stuff like that. I would rather use the Hotshot, I think, overall, especially since the overpenning seems to be more reliable with the Hotshot. I don't know if it's just because the laser is easier to see, but the Dominator just does not overpen nearly as well. All right, and lastly, we have the Variable. The Variable, I don't think does anything particularly amazing here. I think the shotgun function is probably what I would use the majority of the time. I can maybe see a point of you like totaling, you know, using the total shot against a crusher. I think it would take like a couple shots to do, like maybe 4 to take out a leg or something like that. But it's very much a gimmick weapon. You'd probably just keep it in the shotgun or AR form. And in that form, it's like C tier somewhere. Like the ergo on it's pretty bad, so it'd be kind of hard to use against vote snatchers sometimes. So something like that, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that where it is. Okay, so this is the tier list as it sits right now. Do I want to change anything? I still think that the Crossbow and Eruptor are absolutely insane. The Scythe is insane. The Flamethrower is insane. The tough part here is I have 4 weapons that are easily teetering on that higher tier of S. I think depending on preference, you might easily see any of these 4 weapons go into S just because of how good they are against their respected enemy. The plasma weapons are very good against the crushers. The Coyote is very good against the wretches. If you're struggling against wretches, Coyote. If you're struggling against crushers, go with the plasma weapons. But because they're not particularly amazing against the opposite enemy, so Coyote doesn't really do much against crushers, and the 3 explosive plasma weapons. They kind of struggle versus wretches. Maybe not the plasma punisher. Maybe that's why I put that in S tier. But these 2 plasma weapons do struggle against wretches a little bit more. You have to charge shot with the plasma purifier, which is a bit awkward. And then the Scorcher just doesn't have that much ammo, which is kind of its downside. But the Coyote is really good, along with the other incendiary weapons. All right, am I happy with the rest of the list? I want to say yes. I want to put that a little bit closer because I do like the Spray and Pray. I think they moved the Spray and Pray in the right direction. I do like it a lot more now. Remember what we talked about with the double-edged sickle? Am I happy with the rest of the weapons? Man, it really sucks to put so many like medium pen weapons down here. But like I said, if there's no like overseers and harvesters and stuff like that, the medium pen just isn't useful to you at all here. Using elements and knockback and just, you know, straight up explosive damage is just way better. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. All right, well, I'm happy where I put everything. I hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Do leave a comment down below. What are you using? You know, go easy on me though. Remember, as always with these tier lists, something that I put in B could easily be deserved to be in A depending on how you make your loadout, or it could be C if you think I'm overvaluing it. Let me know though. Let me know. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'd love to hear your opinion. Or come by the stream, link down below. Early morning streamer NA, but also like 9 a.m. Central European time if you are interested. Would love to discuss things with you guys. We'll be playing this update basically every freaking day. So yeah, come on by the stream and let's go kill some squids together. Bye YouTube. Have a good one.